Today I'm fixing up a used S-type Squier bullet. Hello everyone, welcome to Pawn Shop to Jaw Drop, and today is the day I've been looking forward to for the last few days. I'm gonna fix up this used S-type Squier bullet that I bought for $50. Well, I'm glad you asked. First of all, I got a new pickguard for it, which looks like this. I've always wanted a black guitar with a tortoiseshell pickguard, but my love of tortoises has prevented me from putting it together in the past. Now, this is not real tortoise, so I don't have to worry about it. Next, I'm installing some locking tuning machines. If you have watched the previous video, you know that I wasn't very impressed with these. They're hard to turn and they don't work very good. I've got a new set of pickups, which are low output gold foil humbuckers, which look like this. And I've got a new hardtail bridge. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole build because I have a feeling that video would be quite long. However, I'm anticipating 3 problems because this is not my first rodeo. First off, I'm pretty sure that the holes for the tuning machines aren't going to be the right size. So I'm going to show you how I fix that. Next, I'm betting that the screw holes in the pickguard aren't going to line up because they never do. So I'm going to show you how I fix that. Finally, the new bridge is a hardtail bridge, and the current bridge is a Tremolo bridge. This means that in order to install the new bridge, I'm going to have to fill up the Tremolo route with hardwood. So I'm going to show you how I do that. When it's all said and done, I'll go ahead and redo the audio examples from the previous clip with the upgraded guitar, so we can see what it sounds like. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so a minute ago, I was saying that I anticipated that the holes for the pickguard screws wouldn't line up. It's common when you use an aftermarket pickguard on a Squier guitar for the holes not to line up. However, when I was setting up this shot, I noticed that they look very similar. So I'm just going to check that out real quick. Get this on here. And so I'm looking at this and, well, shut my mouth. The holes actually line up. So we're not going to have that problem after all. All right, moving on to the first thing I was anticipating, which, if you'll remember, was that I was concerned that these holes in the headstock would not accommodate the new tuning machines, and I was actually right about that. If you flip this over and you look here, you can see this doesn't fit. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. First thing we need to do is figure out what size hole we need. So I've got this hole size gauge here, and I'm going to put this into some of these holes. Looks like 12 is too big. You know what? Maybe it's not metric. Maybe it's, let's try some of these other holes. All right, 7/16 is too big. Maybe 3/8. Well, 3/8 works for the first part of the shaft, but it doesn't go all the way in. Looks like 3/8 might be a little snug. And yeah, 5/16 doesn't work. So I guess maybe it is metric, and we already said 12 wouldn't work, but oh wait, look, 10 millimeter is exactly right. So we're gonna have to make 10 millimeter holes. Now, if you just take a drill with a 10 millimeter drill bit, your holes are going to move on you, which means that your tuners won't line up in the end. And since the S-type headstock, one of its features is a straight string pull, we don't want that. Plus, it's going to look very unpro if we don't have those in the right place. So I'm going to show you how to make sure that your holes don't move on you. It requires a special tool, which is called a reamer. That's what you see right here. Now you can buy one of these on Amazon. That's where I actually got mine. Just do a search for reamer, and it's spelled just like it sounds, R-E-A-M-E-R. And go get you one. Okay, so we're gonna need some blue tape or some other kind of masking tape. And we're gonna put the reamer in the hole such that it stops. Then we're gonna take some blue tape. And I'm kind of using this big fat tape, which is maybe not ideal. So I made a smaller piece. Anyway, you just take your tape and you wrap it around where the reamer actually meets. Oh geez, I'm kind of blowing it here, guys. I've got way too big of a piece of tape. All right, again, we're gonna take this and wrap it around the reamer right where it meets the edge of that 10mm hole. All right, so now we've got a depth gauge. You're gonna take your headstock and start grinding away until you get to the right size hole. Now I'm going to do that off camera really quick. Okay, so now you can see that this hole is considerably larger than the others. The only problem is we've only done the one side. We've got to do both sides, okay? So turn this over again, and goes the reamer, and we got to grind away. And I'm going to do that off camera. I suppose I can show you a piece of it. Although I'm going to get sawdust all over the workbench here, but that's all right. So you can see I'm taking away material evenly all the way around because I'm using the reamer. And you turn the reamer you turn the reamer clockwise, by the way. Now, when I take my drill and drill into this, it's not going to move. So here goes. Didn't take much to do that. And now you can see that the tuner fits in there famously. Once that's done, there's a bolt and a washer. Go down in there. And we can tighten that up. Okay, so now you can probably see that that's not straight as far as its orientation this way. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them, and then we're going to come back and I'll show you how I straighten them all up and do the final attachment. Okay? So give me just a minute. All right, folks, so you can see that I've got all the tuners on now, but obviously some are not very straight, and we don't know if any of them are straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this straight piece of wood, and I'm just going to make sure that the flat parts of the tuners, on the bottom of the tuner, there's a flat part. And you just want to make sure that that flat part is touching you just want to make sure that flat part is touching your straight edge. Now you have these little, I don't know if you can see this, I'm going to set it right there. You have these little self-tapping screws that can go in and screw these guys down. Now I'm going to drill pilot holes with a teeny tiny little drill bit, but I have a feeling that you could probably get away with not doing that. I'm just going to do it because that's how I do it. But that's it. I'm going to get these screwed down and then I'll show you what that looks like. All right, y'all, so there is the finished product. And you can see each one is screwed down now, as well as these have been tightened down, and that required a 10mm socket. Next up, we got to fill up this tremolo route. So let's do that now. Okay, first off, I owe you an apology because when I started shooting the video of making the tremolo route fill block, I discovered I did not have enough light, and I also very quickly discovered that I had not charged my camera, and therefore it ran out of juice at kind of a crucial stage. But I'm going to burn through that footage at high speed, and I'm going to try to show you what I did. So I'm sorry about that, but it is what it is. Here we go. Okay, the first thing is I'm starting off with an old piece of an old log I had. This is good old Central Texas hardwood. I'm pretty sure it's ash, but it could be oak, could be holly, could be yopon. I'm not sure what it is, but again, I'm pretty sure it's ash. So the first thing I need to do is cut that down to a rectangular piece of lumber that I can work with. So that's what I'm doing right here. Basically, I'm just taking the flattest side, using that on the saw as the flat side, cutting a new flat side, and then using that new flat side as a reference for the rest of the flat sides. And at one point, I hit a knot, so I actually had to cut the piece down in length in order to keep cutting it. Next thing I had to do was measure out the shallow part of the tremolo route. So measuring that out, and I know you really can't see the lines on this ruler very well, but it basically ended up being 4 inches and 3/4 in length. And then the width is basically 2 and a quarter. Now that's going to vary depending on your tremolo route and your guitar, but don't sweat it. Just measure it and cut it to size. And that's what I'm doing right here. Now the next thing I have to do is measure out the deep part of the tremolo route. That turned out to be about 3 inches and a 1/16 by about 7/8 of an inch. Now I'm making these smaller because I find that having it be exactly the right dimension kind of creates problems when the wood starts to swell and things like that. Now, once I have that piece of wood cut out, I need to use a 1/4 inch roundover bit to accommodate these round parts of the route. And that's what I'm doing right here. The next thing I have to do is cut that to depth, and basically you just make a measurement from the top of the body up to this part of the tremolo route. And it's really hard for me to do that on camera, but I will just tell you that it ended up being about 1 3/4 of an inch. And then the final thing to do, you can see, if you look down in here, you can see there is this lip on the back of the tremolo route. If I roll this over and I put my finger up here, you can see that not all of my finger is exposed. That's because right here there's a lip. Now, this guitar isn't particularly valuable, which means that I could just route that off with a bearing guided router bit. But if you were doing this on a guitar that is a little more valuable, you don't want to devalue it by doing that. So what I ended up doing was cutting a little bit of a rabbet on the tremolo Phillip block, and I will show you what that looks like right now. Unfortunately, while I was doing this part on the saw, the battery ran out on the camera. So let me just show you what I ended up with. So this is what I ended up with. And you can see that this is the part that fits into the shallow part of the tremolo route. This is the part that fits into the deep part of the tremolo route. And if you look at this from the side, you can see this rabbet that I cut right here to accommodate that lip we were just talking about. So if I put the guitar down here, you can see that that fits right in there. And if we turn it back over, you can see that we're coming up almost to the top. Now you'll see, I'm sure in the comments, that I'm gonna get completely murdered by the fact that this is not entirely flush. And I don't know how well you can see this, but I try to leave about 1 millimeter all the way around. Okay, and that is to accommodate swelling, or, you know, who knows what's going to happen. But the bridge is still going to be contacting the top, and there's going to be several screws going into this block. So there's going to be plenty of contact. I don't really think that this needs to be exactly flush, but you'll see it's only about well, I don't know if you can see, but it's only about 1 millimeter below the surface. Now, there's only one last thing to do, and that is, if you look here, you can see that this block doesn't go all the way out to the ends of this block. I don't know if you can see that big corner right there. We need to fill that up. So I've cut these little pieces of wood to make up for that. And that gives us a nice flush surface all the way across. So I'm just going to glue those down with some Tight Bond 2. I'm going to do that right now, clamp it up, give it a little time, and then we'll be ready to get to work. Now you're going to have some squeeze out here. I wouldn't really sweat it. I would just try to clean up as much of it as possible. All right, so we got that clamped up, and we're gonna let that dry for a couple of hours, and then we'll get started on putting this thing together. All right, so I'm gonna do this next bit on the floor because it turns out my camera rig for the table is maybe not the most effective thing. If you're watching this video in the far future, please note that this is one of the first videos I ever made, so I'm still figuring out how to do everything. Anyway, we have our Tremolo fill block all glued up and ready to go. You see these little wings that I just put on? Those are in place, and it's rocking. So, with a 5/32 inch drill bit, I am going to drill some holes. Now you can see I've already drilled one. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to drill another one. Now, when you're drilling these holes, do yourself a favor and drill from the Tremolo route side for the forward one so that you don't miss the Tremolo route. And then drill from the pickup route side for the rearward one. That way you don't drill into this part. So we're just gonna go right in the center here and drill a nice little hole. Looks like I accidentally drilled a hole in my moving blanket as well, but that's okay, that's why it's there. Next, we're going to take a countersink bit, which looks like that, and we're going to countersink these holes to accommodate the screw head. This is just a matter of pushing that conical piece, or that conical tip of the drill, down into the hole and taking away enough material to accommodate the screw head. It looks like I've got a little ways to go. Now, the wood right here is very thin, so you're not going to want to really apply a lot of force with this because you'll push through if you're not careful. Let's see where I'm at now. All right, that's looking pretty good. Now that screw head will fit basically flush. And that's what we want, because we've got to have some wires running through there, through that channel, I mean. And if you have screws in the way, it's not going to work very good. Now for this next one. That's looking pretty good. All right. Next up, in goes the block. I'm going to hold this in place with my hand from the back, and now we're going to use a center punch to figure out where these holes are at. Okay, that's one. That's two. Now with a smaller bit, I'm going to drill a couple of quick little pilot holes. Don't need to go crazy with these. Just want to give the screw a little help. And then with a hand screwdriver, I'm going to screw this down. Perfect. What comes next is we have to put the pickguard in place with just 2 screws. You could probably get away with just 1, honestly, but I'm going to do 2 so that I don't get murdered in the comments by someone who's a more experienced guitar mod expert. All right, so this is our hardtail bridge. Again, with our center punch, I'm gonna mark these screw holes. Now, you'll notice I have the saddles pushed way forward, so I've got a really good view of these. So much so that I could actually probably drill pilot holes without marking them with the center punch, but I'm trying to be Mr. Responsible here. So I'm going to do a test hole on this little piece of wood to see if that drill bit is the correct size for my bridge mounting screws. Looks like it's fine. So I'm gonna drill some holes here. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this. My horse of a thumb might be kind of in the way, but you can see that I have the drill bit only sticking out the length of the screw. That way I don't go too far down and drill through to the other side. And drilling into hardwood like this, you're gonna get these little sticky bits. stuck to your bit, so just make sure in between holes you clean that out and don't burn yourself like I just did, because it does get hot. Voila! Okay, I'm sorry for all the cuts in this video. I've been having to, I've never installed this particular bridge before, this make of bridge, and I'm kind of having to change the way I do certain things as I go. But anyway, I've taken the saddles off of the bridge, and you can see that my new enlarged screw holes work really good, and I'm gonna go ahead and, against my own better judgment, use the drill to screw that down really quick with just one screw, because now we have to center punch the holes where the strings come up through the body. So again, with my center punch, really trying to get these just right in the middle, obviously. And there we go. Now I'm going to take the whole thing apart again and take the fill block out to the drill press and drill those holes out. Okay, so it's about 40 minutes later, and you can see now, this might be kind of hard to see on the black background, so let me put a rag down so you can see what I've done here. There's our block. And I went ahead and painted it black thanks to some good old Texas sunshine. That dried really fast. And I've got string ferrules in place. The string holes are good to go. So let's put it in, and we're almost there, but we still got one more thing to do. All right, so that's sealed up, looking sharp. Now, we've still got to drill one more hole, and that is to accommodate a ground wire for the bridge. So, let's do that really quick. I'm going to go right in between one of the screw holes here. I'm sorry, I'm going to go right between one of the drill holes, rather, or string holes, rather. And I'm going to drill. And then we're going to try to meet that on the other side here. Actually, I'm going to have to take the block out again, I guess. Sorry, guys. Okay, there is our ground. I'm gonna put that in here for later. Get our pickguard back in place. I'm going to use one screw this time. Since we're all pre-drilled. All right, so there's our hardtail bridge installed. You can see on the back, there's some sawdust in the way, I apologize. See on the back, we've got our ferrules there. And I believe I am ready to wire this thing up and put it back together. So I'll be back when that's done. All right, folks, there it is. All put back together. Looks great, sounds great, and I'm really pleased with the way this project turned out. Now, as promised, I'm going to redo the audio examples from the previous video. However, this video is getting quite long, so I'm actually going to do that in a consecutive video, and it's going to go up at the same time, so you won't have to wait for it. Now, before I wrap this up, I want to say one final thing. If you watched this whole video, I'm sure you saw that quite a bit of it was pretty carpentry intensive. If you don't have the experience or the tools or the confidence to take on any of that stuff, then just don't do it. Like the tremolo route fill block, for instance, that's completely unnecessary. You could just block the trem to the same effect. Another thing that happened that you didn't see was I had to enlarge the neck pickup route. I did not film that because I felt like it would be pretty irresponsible to say, hey guys, here you go. Here's how you take a Dremel tool and a chisel to your guitar. I don't mind showing you how to add wood, but I don't want to show you how to take away wood. But seriously, if you didn't know how to do that, you would cause enormous damage very quickly. So please, 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 if you don't feel confident doing any of this yourself, go to a qualified guitar repair technician and see what it would cost to get them to do it for you, because I really think that this turned out great, and I think it would be worth the money to have somebody else do it. Anyway, that's it for this video. I know it was a long one, but I really appreciate you tuning in and watching the whole thing. Well, friends, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. You can head over to pawnshop2jaw-drop.com for even more content. But while you're here, here's another video you might like. This is Brendan saying we'll see you next time on
Pawn Shop to Jaw Drop.